Hi Year 10, I'm going to go through this week what I'd like you to do. I'm going to kind of show you and hopefully it'll make it nice and clear for you. So what I've got here is I need you to pretend that this is your event sketchbook and this is obviously the normal front cover. So what I kind of asked you to do in the Teams group is if you had room, I just want you to flip it over so you've got specialist written on the back and basically start afresh as if it's a new sketchbook. In the same sketchbook, rather than panicking and having lots of bits of loose paper, we can start sticking stuff in here. So you flip your sketchbook, open it up. This back page is technically your first page. The only thing I'd like you to stick on this first page is, well, yours will come in as one sheet, I've got it as two. Basically it's just the outline of this project. So if you could just stick it in nice and neatly on that first page. Can't really show you probably, there we go. Stick it in on that first page and then have a read through it so you've got a bit more of a kind of overview of the course again, just to remind yourselves. These full words here are obviously what we use when we mark your sketchbooks. Those are the big words that appear up high in room 7. I'm always pointing to them and talking to you about it. So have a read of them just to remind yourselves of the things that we look at when we're marking your books. This can get stuck in with whatever you've got at home. If it has to be sellotape, then that's fine. Ideally glue. If you haven't got a glue stick, please write it on the shopping list. Go and get yourself some. Get a parent to order it on the next Tesco shop. It's really important that while you're off, you're able to still take part in this properly, and you kind of need the basics, so make sure you get yourselves a glue stick. So that'll be the first page. Just stick that in, have a read, and then leave it there. The next thing I'm going to get you to do, can't really see this as a double page, but it is. I gave you some sheets in your packs that I posted home. If for any reason you didn't get your pack, can you please let me know quickly, because I'm going to need to send it and make you another one. In your packs, you would have had some sheets that I've written mood board on. I think I stapled them together. What I want you to do this week is we're going to make a double page spread and you're going to make a mood board. So I've given you the images. All you have to do is cut them out neatly. Leave, if I've given you the artist's name on the picture, make sure that you leave that attached. Don't cut it off, because we might need that later. It might be that your whatever final piece ends up being is really inspired by De Pasquet, for example. And if you've already got examples of that in your sketchbook, you can write during your design period, you can say, oh, I looked at De Pasquet right at the beginning of my sketchbook. So if you've got names on them, cut them out with the names, please. Don't cut them off separate, so you've got a million pieces that you need to stick in. Just cut them all out nice and neatly. You've got a double page, don't freak out, I know it's a lot of white space. But what you can do is when you stick them down, really spread them out. So you've got some room around them, so that actually you can write next to them. So a bit like when we did our event unit on the last unit, you kind of wrote around the examples of the big signs. You talked about the things that what worked, how you liked them, we talked about colours, we talked about shapes. We're going to do exactly the same with these. So if you leave a space, then you can do a little bit of written stuff around it. So you've got 3 or 4 sheets I think I gave you. I can't really remember honestly. Just cut them all out. Don't start sticking them down. Lay them all out first. And to take up even more room, what I'm going to ask you to do is in the middle, I want you to write Memphis as just like a big title. You can do this by hand, but obviously it needs to look Memphis-y. So this is the sketchbook I made with last year's Year 10. I just literally Googled Memphis fonts and I just copied and made my own. So I just did that with fine liner and pen. So imagine on this big gap, you could just write Memphis nice and big. There's loads of different Memphis fonts. You literally just have to Google it. There's easy ones, there's challenging ones. I use that same font later again in the book. Yes, I know I spelt this wrong, please don't judge me. But it's just really nice, it's really fun, and it takes up quite a big chunk of your sketchbook page. If you don't want to write Memphis freehand and you're a bit like, oh, I can't do that, it's going to look terrible, don't stress. In your packs, I've given you this sheet. So you could literally cut this out and stick it in the middle. Okay, so I've glued down all my little individual bits. And I've also remembered that I gave you guys a sheet with Memphis patterns on. So I've cut them out and stuck them in as well. Spread them out, lots of room. Got my title popped in the middle. Now I just need to work on these gaps in between. So the first thing we can really work on doing is annotating our images. Few things we can kind of think about when we're writing about them. We don't want to just waffle on and write things that aren't going to get you any marks. So there are kind of 5 things that I would try and focus on. So obviously talking about the shapes, identifying colours, construction. If you can see any way that products have been put together that you think are quite clever or interesting, write it down. It might be that later on you use that same construction in your work. So if you recognise it now, you can kind of refer back to it later. For something like Memphis, materials is really important. So even if you're just guessing what the material might be, or if you kind of know for sure, just jot down the ideas for materials. And this one here, form versus function, this is something we haven't really talked about much before, but will come into play a lot during this unit. So what I'll do is I'll pick one of these products in a minute and we'll work our way through this together. And I'll try and explain to you a little bit more clearly about what this form versus function thing is. So let's move that over. Right. Let's go for this lamp by Sotsas. This is actually called the Tahiti lamp. What we'll be doing later down the project is we'll actually use this in a comparison with another lamp by an artist called Bedin. So let's just do this one together. So first thing to look at then are shapes. Just identify and list really clearly the shapes that you can see. So for example, you could say that the base is just a rectangle, easy peasy. In terms of colour, it's a pattern. So Memphis has developed this kind of squiggly pattern himself. You would have seen it in the first video that I posted for you. So rectangle, use of squiggle pattern. Construction. So things like this. So this is almost like a support beam. This little triangle here. Also useful for support. Things like, what else can we talk about? So colour wise, he's kind of gone for warm colours because you've got reds, yellows and this pink. They're quite tropical as well. This Tahiti lamp is supposed to remind you of kind of cocktails. Not that you would know that at this stage in the project, but we can kind of say they're tropical colours. And it's meant to look a little bit like a bird, so almost like a tropical kind of bird. So if you imagine that's the head, that's the eye, that's the beak, and that's the neck. What else can we say? So materials, now because I've obviously looked at this lamp before with previous year groups, I know that this is enamel and it's coated and it's painted, but you could just say something along the lines of paint. You would just assume that perhaps it was paint or plastic, that would be fine. We're going to talk about form versus function now. So most of the things on this page are either lamps, clocks, chairs or tables, and all of these things are functional ideally. So if it's a clock, use it to tell the time. If it's a lamp, obviously lights stuff up. Chairs and tables, they're meant to be really functional. This is a piece of furniture, it's used for a reason. The thing with Memphis furniture is often, because they're so into the shapes, the form of it, the function becomes quite challenging. Now, so for example, hope you can see it, this chair down here, imagine sitting on that really hard bit of metal, or I'm not sure what else that might be, kind of really flat, really hard chair. It's going to be really uncomfortable. So the function of this chair becomes, it sort of goes out the window. It's not going to be a comfortable piece of furniture. With this massive ball used as the back support, who knows, it might even rock, it might tip over when you sit on it. So for an awful lot of these things, it tends to be more about the look the form of it, the aesthetics, more than the actual function. So for example, with Sotsas's lamp here, the only place the light's going to come out is out of this little tiny opening here. So you're going to end up with almost like a spotlight. Now, if you wanted a tabled lamp or a desk lamp, you'd want it to highlight and light up a large area. Something like this is not going to work very well. So because he's more interested in the shape and the way it looks, he's created something that's way, way, way more about the form, the look of it, than the actual function, actually how good it is as a lamp. So if we write form versus function, I would say it's more about the form. So I'm just gonna maybe draw around it or something like that, just to make it really clear. Now I've written quite a lot here. That's because I've obviously looked at this and done this with previous year groups, so I can talk quite confidently about the different things on this one particular lamp. I'm not expecting you to write this much for all of these products. I'm really not. If you wrote me 3 things, maybe talking about the fact, say this one has geometric shapes, it's probably more about the form than the function because it hasn't got numbers, so you couldn't really tell accurately what the time was, and you think it's made out of, say, plastic or a plasticky material, that would be perfect. Obviously you do not have to write about these patterns, they're just there just so you've got some examples in your books. Please don't worry about it. Maybe just 3 little things for each of the products, and one of those things could be whether or not you like it. It could be, actually it could be your opinion, and again you don't need to write massive sentences, just little brief annotations to show that you're already thinking about these products straight away. So that's the first thing you can do. So number 1, annotate your images. Number 2, let's fill up some of these gaps. So you could draw, recreate sections of the patterns or products. So for example, you could do Sotsas's lamp. This top section, you could literally just choose to draw that bigger in the background. So start off with this kind of spherical shape, do it really lightly because you're still going to want to be able to read your writing. Just let it come around in the background. Then you've got this kind of bit over here. I'm actually going to let it sit behind, and you could just do a little bit of this beamy bit that comes down, and that would be fine. If you wanted to add a bit of very light colour, that would be absolutely fine. Actually, I've just noticed this little sticky bit on the top. So you could kind of fill in these backgrounds by recreating or drawing sections of the products if you felt confident to do that. Add a little bit of colour, maybe with a colouring pencil. What you want is for these sketches to be nice and light and kind of just be in the background. You don't want it to be overtaking everything you put on this page. Another thing you can do is you can just do some collaging, just of Memphis shapes. So like these kind of shapes they're appearing here, just geometric shapes. You don't have to draw a whole pattern, you could just pick shapes and draw them on. I've written collage because if you go to places like the Range or B&M or just really cheap shops, you can buy these kind of kiddies craft packs. So for example, I just bought a couple of foam little craft packs. I think they were literally about £2 or £3 each. Not expensive by any means. And they tend to come with ready cut shapes, which are absolutely perfect for this Memphis unit. Can't get them out now. So this one came with all kinds of geometric shapes cut out. So you don't even have to worry about trying to cut the shapes yourself. You can just buy them ready-made and just stick them on. So this one came with, and they're all at the bottom of the bag now, loads of these little black dots. So if you look around these kind of patterns and things that I've given you, you can see that they're appearing on the clocks. You can see that actually, push that down a bit, these little dotty patterns appear all over the place. So what I'm suggesting you do is, if you get the chance, if yourself or your folks at home are actually going out doing a little bit of shopping, are going to places like the Range, go and get them to buy you the children's kind of bumper material packs that are dirt cheap, but they come with all these pre-cut shapes that you can use to kind of decorate your sketchbook. They even have, I found a semicircle earlier, don't know, it's gone now. Oh, here we go, triangle. So you could literally just use these to kind of go in your backgrounds. I don't know, you can be creative with them. Equally, if you haven't got the opportunity to go out and buy these things, or if you just don't want to, that's fair enough. Just have a go at just drawing some of these patterns in. Use a felt tip. Some of you I know will have Sharpies. Remember just to be aware with Sharpies that they will bleed through onto the facing page. So don't ever put Sharpie on this page if you know you've got a beautiful drawing on this page, because it could ruin it. So just be mindful with your Sharpies. So for examples of what you could do in drawing, you probably can't see very clearly on the video, but I've really lightly with a pencil just drawn some geometric shapes. I've literally looked at this pattern, the easiest one I could find, and I'm just going to just recreate some of these little patterns around my page. So this is obviously going to A, take up some space, and B, kind of liven up my page a bit. Ooh. And obviously once your felt tip's dry, you can rub out your pencil outlines. You're going to need to make sure you have a ruler for this project, because drawing, oh that's a terrible pen, drawing with really what's meant to be really obvious, accurate geometric shapes without a ruler, so this square could really quickly look rubbish if I didn't have one. That's better. So these are just cheap felt tips. So again, if you don't have any and you want to invest, don't need to go and buy Sharpies. It's not necessary. Again, just the children's craft aisle and somewhere like the range will do the job just fine. Let's try and thicken that up a bit. So this could actually, by the time you've written all your annotations, done some sketches, maybe put in a few little patterns like I'm doing now, this page will really quickly fill up and it will look really good. You've just kind of got to be bothered to spend a minute or two doing it nicely. Now I can't find my ruler. So I'm just literally going to copy this pattern here. Easy peasy. Actually, for this one, I don't think I'm going to draw that. I'm going to do some of these dots. So literally just copying what I can see off of these patterns, just giving it a go. You could just do it with coloured papers, just anything really. What did I draw around? I think I drew around one of these for this, yeah. So you want to keep it simple but try and make it look clean. See, what you don't want is to end up with really messy pages, because Memphis is very childish, but it can look pretty rubbish pretty quickly. I should use a thicker pen, never mind. Anyway, so fill it up, make it look beautiful. That's all I really want you to do this week. I have booked in a meeting on Teams for us on Friday at 2 o'clock. It's literally a drop-in session. I'm just going to sit there for half an hour. Anyone who wants to just drop by, say hello, ask me questions about this, or wants to show me their mood board, or wants to ask me questions about the Memphis unit, or wants to ask me questions about the previous unit. It's literally a drop-in session just pop by and talk to me if you need me. The following week, we are actually booked in properly. It's a proper class session. I've already booked it on the calendar, and I've asked you to make sure you bring your Memphis packs or whatever starters and stuff I've given you. Bring it with you and make sure you have your pencil case, so if we do a starter or whatever together, it's all there ready and you're not running around trying to find stuff. So this is this week. Now in your packs, you have this starter. I've sent this to Mr. Finch and Mrs. Freno this week, and I've said perhaps the other Year 10 class could do this week. I'm going to use this with you next week. So if your friends, for example, are saying, oh, this is what we're doing, I want you to do this week, and I will do this with you next week. So it's not that you won't be doing what they're doing, we'll do it all eventually. I've just sent it to them because they haven't had packs, I don't think. So we'll do this next week. If you want to have a look at it, or if you want to have a little go at it this week, feel free, but I don't want to overload you, so ignore that. That'll be next week, and this is this week. If you've got any questions, just drop in on the Friday. You might want to screenshot this, just so you know what you need to be writing and what not. If not, I'll write it in the description. Anyway, I will look forward to actually seeing what you create in your books. It'll be really exciting. Thanks.